First of all, let me apologise. I'll start with an apology. I am English, so I apologise for the accent. If you don't recognise any of the words I say, then please ask me later on. So, my name's Dave Hart, it says up there. I'm the VP of Global Customer Transformation for ServiceMax. Yes, I do have one of the longest business cards in the industry with that title, so hopefully I'll try and justify it a little bit during the presentation. So, I often come to these kind of sessions, and I've been to many, many sessions like this, and often wondered who is that guy up at the rostrum talking to us, and what gives him the right to tell us how to run our field service organisations? Well, I promise you that's not the intention today, but just a little bit of background on myself. I started in 1987 as a service technician, so I was that guy out for 6 years with a tool bag in my hand, driving the car around, fixing photocopiers, as it was for me. There's a few people nodding their heads in the room, so some people have obviously got a similar background. And then later on in my career, I moved into sort of middle service management, running teams of engineers. I run a service organisation in the Republic of Ireland as well. And that old adage that they say crap only heads downwards, but I think if you're in middle management in service, it heads both ways, certainly. So I did various roles for that particular company. And in the year 2000, I joined the Pitney Bowes organisation. For those of you who know Pitney Bowes, they're synonymous for postage machines and obviously software products these days. And I had various roles with them. I was troubleshooting some very large accounts that were unprofitable for them. And then eventually I ran their European service organisation. I was VP of European service for Pitney Bowes for the last 4 years. And at that point I made the decision to purchase ServiceMax. So we rolled out ServiceMax to 1,000 service engineers across Europe in 13 different countries. And the old adage, I've now moved on and I now work for ServiceMax. So as some people would say, I'm a poacher turned gamekeeper. So that's kind of my background. And what I want to do today is talk to you about driving profitable service revenue before handing over to Kevin Rusin, who's the CFO from McKinley, who'll talk to you about their experiences as well. So, before I start, just a little bit of background. This is the Service Council, and this is some data they produced recently in June 2013. And what it tells us is that when we interview service leaders, they tell us the things that are most prominent and foremost in their minds are primarily about driving service revenue, followed by managing their costs, and then obviously increasing customer loyalty and satisfaction. And then there's a whole host of other things there, as you can see, things like productivity, utilization, and first-time fix rate, and so on. So some of you in the room may look at this kind of data and say to yourself, well, it's almost mission impossible. So some of you may look at it and say, well, if you think about it, you know, driving additional revenue, managing costs, increasing customer loyalty, and so on, some of you may be sitting there thinking, well, that's just mission impossible as far as we're concerned in our organisation. Now, there may be others among you who say, well, that's just child's play as far as I'm concerned. That's really quite easy for me in my organisation, and you know, there isn't really a problem as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully, you're the first one that see it as a little bit of mission impossible, and hopefully today we're going to show you some ways of how you can overcome that as part and parcel. But you know, I don't know about you guys, but certainly when I used to meet with the CEO, we used to have about 5 minutes on the agenda in the service organisation, after about 2.5 hours of getting the sales update, first of all. And it was all about, you know, how we drive additional revenues in the company and are we selling enough machines and so on. And don't get me wrong, that's probably the most important thing in any organisation. But you know, when I worked in Pitney Bowes, I delivered 40% of the EBIT of the organisation and got 5 minutes on the agenda at the end. And again, I can see quite a few people in here nodding their heads thinking, yep, that happens to me as well. But I think most service leaders these days have got this dilemma. They go meet the CEO and the CEO is saying, listen, top line sales revenue is declining. You know, we're in a recession and we need to squeeze more revenue from our customer, we need to get more wallet share. And we're going to do that through our service organisation. So, as a service leader, I want you to get out there, I want you to drive additional revenue. I want to see those costs coming down, I want to see higher customer loyalty. So this is a common theme we're hearing all the time when we go around and talk to our customers.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, there's always one. It's a $5 fine, by the way. An immediate ban to come back in. Okay. You could also argue, of course, that if there are no ups and downs in your life, then you're dead. Okay, and that's the way I look at it. For me, service right now is a challenge for all of us. Okay, we're all tasked to really drive top-line revenue. Okay, and some of us are really struggling to understand how we're going to do that in our organisations. And you'll see as part and parcel of the presentation today from myself and also from Kevin, we're going to show you some ways that we've seen in other organisations use that have driven additional revenue in their companies. So hopefully, none of us in here are dead. We're all looking forward to accepting the challenge. So, if we think back, let's just summarise what we said. We know that service leaders are telling us, we know by the industry data, we know by the things like the TSIA and the Service Council and so on, driving revenue is at the forefront of your minds right now as service leaders. Engagement and loyalty next, and operational effectiveness. And the most important one, the one that everybody tells us about, is we need to drive additional revenue. So some of you might think to yourself, well, that's great. I've been in here 5 minutes. The guy's just bawled him up about how much he's done in his history, and he's just told us a load of stuff that we already know. So effectively, I've now become Captain Obvious in this presentation. So there's nobody in the room, I think, that's got anything different other than probably those 3 main things that they've got to drive within their service organizations. You know, Confucius once said, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. So again, I'm not here preaching. There is no magic bullet as far as I'm concerned for any service organization. What we're going to show you as part of this presentation are things that we've seen in organizations, in my previous organization, and other companies as well, who've taken this tool and really started to develop it and really made fundamental changes in their business, driven efficiencies, driven additional revenues, and improved the customer loyalty and satisfaction. So hopefully those words won't come back to haunt me. So the question is, how can we drive additional dollars in our organization? So my first question to you guys, really, let's make this interactive, is what is the biggest asset in your organization? Anybody? People. Your people, absolutely. Thank you for that. That was the right answer, by the way. It is absolutely your people. And you know, I've got some pictures here, and for me, service technicians are our greatest asset by a country mile. And I think a lot of service leaders are really starting to recognize that now. They're starting to see that these people here are a fundamental source of revenue for our organizations going forward. So, with that in mind, I'm going to put up what I consider is my controversial slide. And this slide is not meant to offend anybody in the room. Can I state that before anybody does get offended? So here we go. Now, this was said to me by a Pitney Bowes customer once. And it really resonated with me quite profoundly. And the lady that said it to me was being really truthful. She said, you know what? If a salesman comes in and says to me, you know, your machine's 6 years old now, there is a new model that gives you extra functionality, higher speeds, and so on, I don't believe that. What I do is I talk to my really nice technician, because Bob's been coming here for the last 20 years. And I speak to Bob and I say, hey Bob, the sales guy's just told me I need a new one. What do you think? And if Bob thinks the customer needs a new one, Bob will say, yeah, I think it's time you change the machine. As far as I'm concerned, she said, that's good enough for me, I'll go and buy a new one. If Bob says there's plenty of life left in my machine, then I won't buy a new one. And of course, the education of the exercise here is to make Bob realize that he's a fundamental part in this. Effectively, our service technicians become what I call trusted advisors. And it's a common theme that we're now using in the industry. But they really are trusted advisors. And if companies really latch in to how they should use these people, then we've seen some fantastic revenue gains in organizations. So here's a novel thing for you. My advice to people in this room is hire techs who can sell. Oh, and it's important they can fix things as well. And that is a unique change, I think, in the industry. So I'm not here saying hire people who are salespeople and let's hope that they can fix a machine or they know one end of a screwdriver from another. That's not the point. The point is here, it's obviously critical that they have to have the technical skills. But they also got to have those soft skills as well about managing customers and managing that trusted status that they have with the customers. You know, I actually visited a company and they actually hire service engineers, and it takes them a full day to do the hiring process. So what they do in the morning is they set up equipment and they do all the regular tests. They give them a test on their electrical skills, mechanical skills, and so on. And if they get through that first part, they're actually invited for lunch, and they pay for lunch for them. If they don't get through that part, they're asked to leave the building. And then in the afternoon, they start doing some soft skills with them. So they do things like competency-based interviews and talk to them about a situation with a customer and start role-playing with them to understand if they've got some of those soft skills to help them. Because they realize that if they bring those people into the organization, they've already got those trusted advisors already in a position to start selling to customers. And I think that's a unique change in the way that they employ people in the industry. Now you may think to yourself, okay, so I've listened to this guy now for 10 minutes, and I'm not sure he's really taught me anything. You could argue that he's incredibly smart, or I'm being overly sarcastic when I say hire people who can sell as well as fix things. But I really mean it. For me, this is a really important, this is a sea change in our organizations. Service leaders are absolutely in the spotlight right now, and they're being demanded of by their CEOs to start coming up with innovative ways of growing revenue streams. And one of them absolutely is those trusted advisors. So, what I want to do now is try and give you some examples. So let's let's move into ServiceMax and see how ServiceMax can help your organizations. Here's an example of sales leads, for instance. Now, if you think historically, sales leads in most organizations, depending on your organization, could be handled through some kind of manual system. It may well be that the engineer fills a form in, or perhaps he rings a helpline and gives some details. And whenever I've spoken to engineers in the past, they've always complained about the same things. When they put a sales lead in, the first thing the sales guy says is, I already know about that one, so that's not a genuine lead and I'm not going to pay you any commission on it. That's the first thing. Secondly, the paperwork gets left in the office or it gets missed. Thirdly, the machine gets installed and the paperwork process hasn't caught up. The engineer could be the one that goes back and does the installation and wonders why nobody's told him it's been sold, doesn't get any commission on it, and they get switched off very, very quickly. So within Pitney Bowes, we recognise this as an issue, and we weren't getting all of our engineers using that trusted advisor status. So what we did within the iPad app that we built for this particular example here, you can see that there's a tab on the left-hand side that says Sales and Marketing. The engineer hits the tab, and across on the right you then have some options. If it's a service lead, he just pushes the button across, and there's a free text field for him to update the information. Now, we're a Salesforce.com customer at the time. That information is integrated immediately into Salesforce. It's populated as an opportunity. The salesman then has to accept the lead or not. If it's already in Salesforce, then of course he doesn't need to. If it isn't in Salesforce, he accepts the lead. The process is then fully automated. The engineer can track it, and he can see if he's going to get paid commission on it. So that's immediately taken out a lot of the paperwork issues that we had, and it's automated the system, and there's clear and transparency there for everybody concerned. You can also see there's a tab there for third-party consumables, competitor products, and toner leads as well. So if the engineer has a lead for toner and so on, or he's got information on competitor products, he can put it in. But you know, for me, the picture there is probably the strongest thing. How many of you use a system at the moment where the engineer writes the lead on the back of his hand, and we've all got to hope that he doesn't wash that night and scrubs the lead off before remembering to put it into the system? You know, secondly, the VP of our marketing organization said to me, you know, if you've got 1,000 engineers doing 4 calls a day, that's 4,000 customer contacts your service organization has every single day. He said, when I went out with a service engineer, every time we went into a site, I noticed that by the side of a Pitney Bowes piece of equipment, there's usually a competitor piece of equipment as well. And we know nothing about that within our organization. So again, we built some functionality where the engineer can push the tab across for competitor products, and they can start putting information in. And that again is interfaced into the European Marketing Database. So we now have a system where service engineers can update information on what's going on with competitors within our customer base. And that again is very powerful. Just think how powerful it would be to give your sales organization a really good qualified lead with names and contact numbers and so on to be put into the system like this. And you know, we've seen customers use this in other ways as well. We quite often hear that a lot of your customers don't necessarily understand where all of their assets are. And sometimes the asset register could be pretty much out of date. Again, there's a great example here where you can use this to collect asset data at the same time and update your own user base in your organizations. You know, I want to give you this example here. For me, this is very powerful. If you can switch service engineers into that trusted advisor status and help them understand just how powerful they are in actually being able to sell to a customer. So if we talk through the problem here, in Pitney Bowes, obviously they supply inks to the customers to make the indicia, or the indicia marks here, as you can see here. And those inks were really under a lot of competitive pressure. As with, you know, if you think about your printing device at home, maybe your HP printer, you know, you can buy compatibles now, compatible ink at 1/3 of the cost. And this was really starting to have quite a dramatic effect in the Pitney Bowes organization. And the guy that heads up our supplies division came to me and said, how can we get these trusted advisors, how can we get your service engineers hooked into helping us being able to protect this valuable revenue stream we have as an organization? And I'm sure you're all familiar with the term there, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what we ended up coming up with, was a very, very simple incentive scheme for the engineers. And I told the guy he needed to do 2 things. He needed to make it very easy for an engineer to place an order, and he needed it to be very easy for the engineer to understand how he would be recompensed for placing an order in the system. And that's exactly what we did. The engineer now gets 10% of whatever he sells from an ink perspective. And bearing in mind, this is very, very profitable business for Pitney Bowes. And techs are ingenious. If you give them the right incentives, and you stir them and you let them know about how they can help the customer, and the point is how they can help your organization at the same time. That valuable revenue stream is effectively keeping everybody in a job. So it's really important that we squared the circle with the engineers and made them understand. What I want to do now is just give you a quick story, because I went on a visit with a service engineer to do an installation. And I was so impressed at how this engineer managed the customer and used his trusted advisor status. And it kind of went like this. After we finished the installation, he said to the customer, listen, the machine comes with a very small bottle of ink. Would you like me to order you some more ink? Based on your volumes, you're going to need it fairly quickly. And the customer agreed. Now, the cynics in the room might say, well, hang on a second, you were going to get that order anyway. And you're absolutely right. So we've just given 10% commission to the service engineer. Perhaps we didn't need to. But then what happened next was fantastic, because he said to the customer, do you have a problem with return mail? In other words, where the mail comes back into your organization but goes to the wrong department. And the customer said, we do, it's a big problem for us. We're a big organization. To which the engineer replied, okay, I have an answer for that, because I can program that your return address goes onto the envelope. So if the customer gets the wrong piece of mail, they can send it straight back to you. Would you like me to enable that for you? The customer says, great, that'd be fantastic. If I do that, you're going to need some more ink, because obviously you're going to consume some more ink. So the customer said, oh, okay, then I'll order some more. The next thing he did, he said, well, would you like your logo on your envelope to improve your brand awareness? So the customer called the marketing folks. The marketing folks thought that was a great idea. They sent down an image, and you can see one there. There's one there for British Judo, for an example. Of course, what happened next? Well, you're going to need some more ink. And it's now 2 colours, so you need 2 more bottles of ink. What happened that day? We took a $1,000 order for ink. And the engineer won $100. Now, if you think about it from a customer perspective, the customer was delighted. Extra functionality on their machine. They got rid of a problem with the return mail, and they improved their brand awareness. And the engineer took an order for $1,000 that Pitney Bowes probably wouldn't have got. And for me, that's a really good example. If you get these people switched on, you make them realize their trusted advisor status, and you give a very simple way of them ordering through their iPads, it makes a very compelling reason why engineers want to be hooked in and sell more. You know, for me, this one here is what I call the jewel in the crown. And I go to a lot of organizations, even today, and I see T-card systems, I see whiteboards, I see manual spreadsheets, I see contracts in rooms of thousands of bits of paper. I ask customers, do you know what your warranty period is? They say, we know what it is, but we find it very hard to track it. And sometimes we know we're giving free service away. So again, in this example, all the engineer does is click on the entitlement button on the left-hand side, and then he's given very clear information. This is an all-inclusive contract. The contract is valid until the 18th of August, in this case, 2013. So guess what? This customer's now out of contract. The warranty was valid up until 2008. And it clearly indicates to the engineers that wearable parts, in this case, 0% coverage. In other words, if you fit a part that's a wearable part, you need to bill the customer for it. And what we've done within the interface is we've actually built within the SAP system that's interfaced to, that if an engineer fits a wearable part, it's automatically charged to the customer. Now think about this. If an engineer is in doubt whether a customer is covered or not in a contract, do you think he'll bill the customer or not bill? I think we all agree. Engineers will always err on the side of the customer. I don't know, so I'm going to make this free of charge. And it's quite common in the industry for that to happen. If you take the guesswork out of it for the service engineer, then you're trapping all of that revenue that used to leak out of your organization. The other one for me is annuity streams. Service organizations live and breathe on annuity streams. It's about getting those regular contracts and getting that money from the customer on a regular monthly or quarterly basis. And we know from industry data that best-in-class companies keep 97% of their customers at that point of re-sign. And unfortunately, the worst performers lose up to 40% of their customers at that point. Now, if you think about that for a minute, again, maybe we got an example here where we can use those trusted advisors. And now with our Summer 13 release with Smart Docs, and we'll show you a demonstration of this later on, there's nothing to stop the service engineer from calling up the renewal form on his iPad. And then you can see there's the ability for the customer to re-sign. So think about this if you're looking at chargeable work, for example, where you want the engineer to go and look for additional opportunities for you. At the moment, he can't produce a quote, perhaps. Maybe he has to call the office. Maybe somebody has to call the customer back. You've kind of missed the opportunity. But here, by calling up the Smart Docs, the engineer can calculate how much it's going to cost to the customer, get a signature automatically, get a purchase order, and then get on with the work. And it can all be done automatically through their iPad, which is, for me, it's very powerful, very, very compelling indeed. So, what I want to do now, if I may, is I'm going to hand over to Kevin.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Rustin, and I'm the CFO of McKinley Equipment, McKinley Elevator. This is my 23rd year at McKinley, so I started when I was a boy. And I started as a service manager and worked my way up to eventually become CFO. So obviously this is all near and dear to my heart with everything I'm going to be talking about today. Please bear with me, I'm kind of fighting a little bit of a cold. This is an article back in an industry magazine called MHEDA, which is the Material Handling Equipment Distributors Association of America. And this is back in 2006, and this future goal that's in this box right here is I want to someday be able to create an account management system where I can keep my customers for life, right? And back in the day, it really kind of didn't exist, because back in 2006, there wasn't a cloud like there is today. And we're a small business. We're just under $30 million, and I don't have millions and billions of dollars of budget to go out there and to create my own system, like some of the old large companies used to do in the old days, right? I kind of had to sit there and wait. So what we've done now is we're actually in the middle of a business transformation. We are a 65-year-old company. I'm going to kind of tell you a story about this today. And because of ServiceMax, we're wowing our customers like never before. Just kind of stop and think about that for a moment, the word of wowing your customers. When your service technicians leave, I'm assuming everybody in this room has a service department, right? Because that's why you're in this room today. When your technicians leave, do your customers go, wow? Just kind of put yourself in the moment when you are at Nordstrom's, right? And they do a great job taking care of for you. They pick out the clothes for you, like, you look fantastic in that today. I do look good, right? And away you go to take care of yourself, right? And when you walk away, how do you feel? You feel wow, right? And do your technicians wow your customers? Are they doing that today? Because if they're not, they need to be looking at that. Because when you're wowing your customers, how are you competing? You're not competing on price, right? That's the last place that we want to compete when we're doing business in the service department. So who is McKinley Equipment, McKinley Elevator? McKinley Equipment is a material handling distributor, and basically what that means is anything that moves parts or products or anything that you buy in these stores, they go over or under one of these products to eventually get to the store shelves, and you can eventually go and purchase them. We sell, install, and service those in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And McKinley Elevator is an accessibility company doing residential elevators, wheelchair lifts, stair chairs, etc. Our mission of both of our companies is to be the most trusted sales and service distributor in our marketplace. And back to the wow, I kind of challenge you for the moment to stop and think about what the word trust means to you and what the word trust means to your customers. So think about what Dave said a moment ago about, pardon me, about the lady that said, sales guys all lie, my technicians all tell the truth, right? So we don't even want our sales guys to be thought as liars. We want them to be trusted as well. And the information that they now have, because of ServiceMax as well as Salesforce, we are trusted. So let's talk very quickly about the old way at McKinley. So we had 9 silos of data. What do you think that my employees did 100% of the time? Right, that's all I did. Boss, I can't take that phone call from the customer right now. I'm not here to serve the customer. I'm here to serve paper. And that's what we did, we served paper in our company. Because we had to key stuff in every single day along every single process in our business. We had no history of customer interactions. Our history was digging through filing cabinets. So, a great example is what if a large account said, we want to know what the history is for these regions for the past 6 months, God forbid a year, God forbid 2 years, right? What do we do? I'd pick up the phone, I'd call a temp agency, and I'd say, please send me over 1,400 temps immediately to come dig through all my filing cabinets and sort through all this paperwork. Now here is the best part, right? They don't care, they're temps, right? And so they'd stack stuff up in any old place, right? And eventually what they do is they'd key that in because, right, we like to key in data, right, at McKinley, we used to. And we keyed in data into an Excel spreadsheet we thought were really cool, we'd email that out. But they were temps and they didn't really care, and so was the data actually right? And what was actually giving to my customer? Was I partnering with my customer by giving them some data that was old and stale because it probably took us a month or so to gather? Probably not really, right? If you stop and think about your customer, for McKinley Equipment, one of our customers is a warehouse manager. So some of our facilities, think about the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, right? Everything's coming over from Asia Pac and manufactured. And it hits these ports and the amount of traffic that's going through there, right? All this stuff's getting cross-docked and going off east and the Midwest and all this kind of stuff, right? And this manager has got to keep this product moving through. That's how they make business. And every year, his finance department says, you've got to do a capital budget, right? How can I do that if I can't give them data back in a timely, instantaneous manner? Couldn't. So I'm going to get down to the bottom here of these, and then I'll, go too far, like that. And I'll talk about a few of these. So we have over 50 installers and service technicians. That's actually not correct. We've grown quite a bit. You'll see here shortly. We're over 60 now. And we serve California, Arizona, and Nevada. Every single one of my technicians is armed with an iPad and with ServiceMax. They are our iPads, but we allow them to use them at home. They take them home. Their kids love Angry Birds, right? Star Wars, all this kind of crazy stuff on there. Their wives like to get on for Facebook, Instagram, all this kind of fun stuff. So how many iPads do you think in almost 2 years you think I lost? Anybody? Broken screens? Anybody? How many? That's about 100% too high. I've only had one iPad in almost 2 years that we've got a screen breakage on. It's pretty amazing if you stop and think about it, right? But because I buy them, it's my iPad, it's my device, it's my business. I know where I want to take my business, but I allow them to use that for personal reasons as well. And boy, they sure take good care of that. Now what happens now? Now that they have that, what do you think is going in with this data that's happening with my business? We can do clean data all the time, right? Because they want to make sure things are up and running. We install and service all the products we sell, and we also service all of our competitor products, exactly what Dave was speaking about earlier. So before, if, get through these. If we went out to a customer and they had competitor products, we didn't track any of that stuff. How could we ever give those leads back to our salespeople, right? We weren't doing that. So let's take a look at this really quick. So we said at McKinley, we've been in business since 1948. And every time we get a customer, a really big customer, service would kind of falter because we had so much paper. Remember our 9 data silos, right? We're just, right? And just imagine paperwork coming in from 60 guys from 3 states, right? And first of all, I never wanted to see these technicians because if I saw a technician, you weren't billing for me. I never want to see you. Hey, you're great, I love you, but I don't want to see you, right? Because if they're in the shop, we weren't billing a customer. So when they come in, you can just imagine the amount of paperwork. Right? They dump on our desk, right? What if they were a customer 3, 4, 5 days ago, a week ago, right? And that customer said, can you please order this part ASAP? Oops, right? Now I have this paperwork a week later, and how fast we ordered this part? Not very fast. So back to think about our mission statement for a moment, right? To be the most trusted sales and service distributor. What do you think was happening with trust? It really wasn't going anywhere, right? So we said, we're gonna make field service our main competitive differentiator. And here's the things we want to focus on. Happy employees, service delivery, customer loyalty and success, service revenue. Let's quickly go through a few of these. So happy employees. We have less than 0.5% employee turnover. No more walk-in blind. How many of you have ever been told by your technicians, I hate going to that place because every time I walk in there, when this guy was out there before, I get blindsided by the customer and it's miserable. When they walk in and get blindsided by the customer, what do you think they're going to do when they're there? Are they going to wow that customer? No way, right? They just got smacked when they went in there. They have no idea what's just going to hit them. And so they're just thinking about how fast can I hurry up and get out of here? I'm not focused about how can I serve my customer, right? Now my technicians with their iPad, when they walk in, they know exactly who was out on the last job, exactly what they did for the entire history of that product. And by the way, if someone was out a week or so ago, excuse me, a week or so ago working on a totally different product, they can go, hey Bob, how is Doc 28 doing, or whatever part doing? I know that so-and-so was out there the other day. Is everything still working okay on that? You think about that touch, right? That is so amazing. We could never do that in our business before. I'd be willing to bet that if you're not using a product like ServiceMax, you might not be either. We share information with Service Pulse, which is it's like a chatter, if you will, entirely new service technician culture. I want to tell you really briefly about Joe D, because I want to get through, I've got a decent amount of slides here I just want to share with you, and I'm happy to stay after and answer questions. We want to make sure we have time for a demo as well. But Joe D is a technician of mine that's worked for me for over 28 years, okay? And Joe D is 66 years old. And Joe D was a guy that said, you will never put me on that iPad. Mark my words. I'm not getting on that iPad. I know how to use this pen, I know how to use this paper, I've been using this paper forever, and I'm not going to this iPad. So, okay. Oh, we got Joe on the iPad. And lo and behold, about a month and a half or so ago, I was in the office and Joe had a problem with his iPad one afternoon about 3 o'clock, and he, God forbid, had to go back to the paper for a whole afternoon. And when I came walking into my office that morning, he came trotting up to my office. He's like, I just got to tell you something. He goes, I love my iPad. I said, wow, that's kind of fun to hear. Can I record this? Right? Can I get this on recording really quick? He goes, Kevin, I want to tell you something. He goes, I know I fought it tooth and nail. He goes, but I will tell you that if you ever think you want to take away my iPad, I will retire. And you might as well make sure that you give me the Transamerica information that happens where our 401k information is, and get it to me because I will not come to work the following day. It's a true story. Take a look at that bold up there. Increased first call fixed rates by 18% the first year. That's a true number. So what's that doing for me, right? It's lowering my costs. It enables me to do what? Keep the same amount of technicians, right? And do what? Serve more customers on a daily basis. What's happening with my UR rating? My utilization rate is going through the roof, right? Where do you think my profits are going? Right? My revenue is the same place. First call fixed rates, parts ordering bottleneck has been destroyed. I'm going to come back and talk about that. Consistency of service, customized service plans, and we've eliminated warranty leaks. But I want to talk about the parts ordering bottleneck because I think this is just so big. We were on paper before. Stop and think about your technicians in the field. They're on paper and they have to write down, I need a thingamajig, right? Has anyone ever seen that on your technician's paperwork? Okay, first of all, they need a thingamajig, but then not only that, you're trying to read the writing, which is almost impossible as well, right? And I'm not being mean, it's just the truth. And so they eventually get that paperwork into the office, and now they're long gone, they're out at another customer. And the poor parts guy's like, what's a thingamajig? This absolutely just happened to your business. It's kind of a halt, right? He has to pick up the phone, he has to call and bother the technician in the field and say, hey, what did you mean by the thingamajig? It's the thing that's connected to the deal, and that's what you got to order. So has this ever happened to you? The wrong parts order? Yeah, maybe a few times. It happened to us tons of times over 65 years, right? Before we got into the system, right? We don't have that problem anymore. Why? Because all my technicians' manuals, where do you think they are? On iPad. So what do they now have to do? They are required to look up that part number in that manual. And where do you think they place that? They place that in the ServiceMax app, which you'll see here in a bit. And they write down on there what they need and the quantity that they need. What do you think when as soon as they change the status of that work order on the iPad app to parts requested? Split second, not weeks later when they drop off the paperwork, split second later. That's in my parts managers or my parts department's queue. And what are they doing? They're ordering those parts for those customers right then. What do you think is happening with trust at McKinley with our customers? Trust is rising, right? Absolutely. We're taking care of our customers. What do you think is happening there too? All that time, that non-billable time that I had in my parts department before is now being what? It's billable, right? It's a powerful thing. Customer loyalty and success, not just a vendor, a partner and a trusted advisor. So I was talking about earlier, but I don't want to compete on price. I know that no one in this room wants to compete on price either, because it doesn't get you anywhere, right? It doesn't get you the sweet bonus at the end of the year, right? It doesn't take care of your employees, doesn't get better health, doesn't get better 401k, other benefits, etc., right? You can't win when you're competing on price. So we want to be a partner and a trusted advisor. We want to be proactive and not just reactive. We want to manage our customer capital budget process, which we talked about, unlimited reporting, and now we have several customers, including Coca-Cola, who's on our customer portal, right? So think about the gentleman from Coca-Cola on an annual basis. Atlanta's like, I want the capital budget, right? You know what this gentleman said to me one day? He said, Kevin, because I probably spend a week of my life every year trying to figure out this capital budget. You know what he does now? Logs on that portal, goes to reports, clicks budget, and selects the date range, and hits go. That's all he does. What did I do? I bought this gentleman a week of his life back. Do you think that he cares about the hourly rate that I'm charging him compared to the guy that, you know, this gentleman right here comes up the next day and goes, I'm going to charge you $10 less per hour. He doesn't care. I'm saving him time, I'm saving him money. Why? Because also my first call fix rates, if I'm able to come out there because I know the make, model, serial number of all the products that we have out there, right? I can dispatch the proper technician, excuse me, he can fix it right the first time, which is doing what for my customer? I'm saving him money, I'm saving him time, I'm saving him all over the place. I'm becoming a trusted advisor to my customer. It's exactly where I want to be. So year over year, we've had a 47.4% revenue increase since we've implemented ServiceMax. That is a true member in my service department. Why is that? What we talked about earlier. Every time I'm what? Winning a nice customer, another one was going where? Out the back door. Because I couldn't manage it. I couldn't manage the paperwork. Ask me how many people, back-end administrators, I have hired in the last year. 0. With 47.4% increase in revenue. I'm only hiring technicians, which is beautiful, because every time they're out there, the meter's running. Technicians as salespeople, Dash 1 program, I'll talk about that briefly. Your customers is asset, unlimited umbrella price that we can sell and service, and 17% of our revenue generated last quarter was by the Dash 1 program. So in the old days, when we were on paper, if my work order was 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, this part over here, this piece of equipment over here needs to be worked on as well, I would write down on my piece of paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, dash 1. That one over there needs to be worked on, dash 2, dash 3, etc., right? Because we're in the field, we had no way of ever generating those ever work orders, right? And so this is the way that we called our dash 1 program for finding additional work. What do you think now happens with my technicians for dash 1s? They get a piece of the pie. So 17% of our revenue increase last year, or last quarter, excuse me, was all based on the dash 1. I couldn't do it before, because think about the amount of paperwork. I'd bust you. I'd have to hire about 12 different admins to try to keep track of that. And if you miss it once on something with someone's pay, you have lost your organization, right? You do not have happy employees anymore, and they will not trust you, and they won't go to the mat for you. But now, I can track it super easy in ServiceMax. And what happens? I capture 100% of the time, and they can log in all the time, and they can go, whoa, wow, look at all the dash 1s I've done this month. I can't wait till I get my paycheck next month. So what's next? We're looking at big data to look at warranty contracts, predictive service offerings, remote monitoring, run service business through our customer portals, and I'll come back and talk about that last bullet point in a moment. But remote monitoring. Remember I told you early on, we are less than a $30 million company. So we all watched the keynote this morning, right? I'm doing that. I'm plugging into elevators. I'm plugging into high-speed doors, right? If there is a distribution center, think about this. One of my favorite places to go visit is the Safeway Distribution Center where they manufacture ice cream. I don't know why, it just happens to be one of my favorite places to go and visit, okay? Because when it's flying down the line, I just always ask them, where's the chocolate chip, right? Because the guy always lets me just go over there and just grab one of those bad boys right off and it comes out. And they always have these plastic spoons and things, you just get to sample it right there, right? But what's super important for this guy in his business? His doors and these freezer doors, right? Because what's going to happen to all of this inventory, God forbid one of those doors is not working. You're going to lose millions of dollars, right? So now that I'm plugging in, right, what am I doing? I'm not only monitoring that door to make sure that it's functioning properly, what do you think I'm also monitoring? Temperature. And who gets notified? Me, but also my customer. Send a text message. Hey, check it out. Your temperature is heating up. Code red. Save my chocolate chip, please. Right? It's a powerful, powerful thing. And again, going back to the example I was with the gentleman right here a minute ago, if I'm doing this and he comes in and wants to be $10 an hour cheaper, $15 an hour cheaper, does my customer care? No. Right? Because what am I giving my customer that nobody else can give? Data, information, solutions, trust, partnership. I am creating and making him a more profitable business and by saving him money. At the same time, I'm doing that for my business. That's a true partnership, and that's what we're doing. So I like to tell people, dream it and execute it with ServiceMax, right? So we're just under almost 2 years that we've been live with ServiceMax and Salesforce. And I like to joke with people quite often and say that I honestly have not slept in about 2 years. And the reason for that is because I always, throughout the evening, when I lie down at night, that's when my brain just kind of goes, boom, it just starts kicking, right? I just kind of go into hyperdrive and say, what if, right? I love coming to this thing and just hearing about certain things. It just spurs an idea. And my poor admin is just getting pummeled with ideas. You should just ask her when you see her, Kevin, stop sending emails. In fact, she told me during the keynote this morning, I'm really stressed out. Why are you stressed out? She's like, I don't know, I get caught up in being gone. I'm like, I love it. I said, do I need to hire somebody else? Because that is a great back-end hire, is to get a second Salesforce administrator, right? Because I'm just pummeling with so much data. And why is this so important? Because I want to have my foot on the gas pedal so hard and so fast that my competitors never keep up, right? And if you do this and you stop and you really think about the strategy of your business today, I promise you this, they won't, right? It's all about being the first guy to go there and get it and do it in your marketplace and let everybody else play catch up. And they're not going to be able to. This is my final slide. I want to talk to you about partnering and partnering with ServiceMax, okay? So I talked about how we're partnering with our customers, and this is a different kind of company. So that picture right there, that technician's name is Jose, and you can see that he's banging away on his iPad, right? And that picture was taken by the CEO of ServiceMax. Called one day and said, Kev, I want to learn more about how our products are being used in the industry. In fact, I want everyone in my organization to do ride-alongs with all of our different customers so that we can write better software, make our software better to make your business run better. So Dave Arnold took that picture. This right here is an email that I sent after going live with our go live, or with our implementation. I want to read it to you. Anita, Deanna, and Ruben, you are some of the most amazing people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. You are so detailed, so articulate, so engaged to my business and all the crazy facets that go with it. You have taken on every challenge we've thrown your way, stepped back and configured, and then demonstrated how ServiceMax will manage my business and allow me to, I love this word, leap ahead of our competition. So from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you to the A team. That's the actual email that I sent them after the implementation. It's true. They're an amazing company who truly care about your business. You have access to the CEO at all times. I just email him now to say hi, right? Just because he's a neat guy, and keep him updated as what I'm doing in my business.